Yo, what up, everybody? It's your boy Carson Fox coming at you live for another edition of Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports, and I'm pumped. Yeah! Mountaineers come away with a 41-28 victory over the UCF Golden Knights. Won a game in which they were a 7-point underdog, and the ESPN FBI gave the Mountaineers an unfavorable chance. It was the largest margin of victory in a conference win since November 14th, 2020 against TCU. And what do you know, West Virginia increases its win total on the season to 5 wins, 3 losses, 3-2 in Big 12 play. Don't take a look at the Big 12 standings. We're way too early still to be doing that, but how nice was that to see? Meanwhile, for the Knights, 3-5, now 0-5 on the season in Big 12 play, winless in their first season in the Big 12 conference. So as I like to do with these recap videos, I like to do what I like to call 2 minutes or fewer recap. But, I mean, there's just so much to talk about from this game with, again, being another high-scoring affair that I don't know how I'm going to do this in 2 minutes, but for you all, I'm going to try and do this as best I can to try and just give you the facts. I'll give you the context. I'll give you the analysis, my thoughts and feelings behind all of the game afterwards. But let me give you a quick recap as best I can. So, starting out, West Virginia came out in attack mode, as Neil Brown called it in his post-game press conference, throwing a 50-yard bomb that unfortunately was incomplete on the very first play to E.J. Horton, but the Mountaineers went 75 yards in 4 minutes to open the game, which included a 4th-and-1 conversion on West Virginia's own 45-yard line. A 6-yard touchdown rush by Garrett Green made it 7-0 Mountaineers to open it up. Though UCF countered right back with a 75-yard drive of their own, capped by an impressive 34-yard touchdown catch by wide receiver Kobe Hudson, 7-7. West Virginia struck right back thanks to a sensational rushing attack that included wide receiver Rodney Gallagher, running back Justin Johnson, Green, and running back Jaheim White, but couldn't convert on a red zone 3rd down from the UCF 6, instead opting for a 24-yard Michael Hayes field goal, 10-7, Old Gold and Blue. Now, a momentum-shifting play early in the second quarter as UCF was driving into WVU territory. UCF quarterback John Rice Plumlee threw a deep ball down the sideline to wide receiver Javon Hargrave, who couldn't corral the catch, instead kicking it up into the air easily for cornerback Beanie Bishop to pick it off and run it back 31 yards. Awesome play, and a stranger call by the play-by-play man that I'm not going to necessarily repeat what he said, but if you play it back, as I have on my Twitter page, if you want to go back and listen to that call, and I think it's also on WVU Football's accounts, what a weird call. Just in the way you listen to it and tell me what your ears hear whenever you hear that play back. What a funny one. The Mountaineers finally capitalized with points off turnovers, driving right down the field for a touchdown by Jaheim White, score 17-7. Points off turnovers, but the 2-score lead would be short-lived as UCF didn't give up on its rushing attack as Plumlee rushing touchdown capped the 10-play drive 17-14 just past midway of the second quarter, with UCF getting the ball out of the half. Now, a UCF kickoff out of bounds gave WVU solid field position to start out its drive, but with just over 2 minutes to play at the UCF 38, Green seemed to have re-aggravated his right ankle injury when he was rolled up on a quarterback keeper. Next play on a 3rd down, a funky, I'll use that word from the announcer, trick play that West Virginia had. I had never seen any team try and use this play. I like the development, but unfortunately it was fumbled by running back Jalen Anderson. No harm, no foul. The very next play, Eddie Vesterinen got great pressure on Plumlee, and it seemed as if he hit Plumlee's arm on the throw. The wounded duck pass fell right into the hands of safety Marcus Floyd, giving WVU's offense another shot before the half. 3 and out for the WVU offense. UCF tried to get points with a start at the drive at their own 11-yard line, but not enough time with 20 seconds to play. 17-14 your halftime score. Now, Plumlee advanced the UCF offense to the 32-yard line out of the half before throwing his third then interception of the day. The second of the day also to Beanie Bishop, and I think was just one of the best defensive plays I've seen West Virginia's secondary make in the last 2 seasons. What an awesome pick that he had between those two wide receivers of UCF who seemed to run into each other. And then WVU took advantage. More points off turnovers. Another Green touchdown rush made it 24-14 Ears midway through the third quarter. 4 pass completions by Plumlee aided UCF's advancement into WVU territory. And then a sensational catch on a 7-yard fade route by Baker on third down completed UCF's third touchdown to get the Knights back within 3. The WVU offense picked up a first down but was forced to punt after allowing a sack. Now, thankfully, on UCF's next series, linebacker Lee Koba made arguably the play of the day when he sacked Plumlee, forced a huge forced fumble inside UCF's 30-yard line that was recovered by Jalen Thornton. WVU was once again able to capitalize on turnovers, thanks in large part due to Green's legs, picking up his third rushing touchdown of the day, the first West Virginia quarterback to do so since the great one, Pat White, in 2008. 31-21 West Virginia. The WVU defense forced a UCF 3 and out, and Jaheim White was unleashed 39 yards on 3 plays by White. But a big play call by Neil Brown, 4th and 2 at the UCF 26. Instead of opting for a makeable field goal, Brown went for it. Green hit E.J. Horton on the first down. On the very next play, Preston Fox fumbled a catch and run, but left guard Tomas Remak was able to pounce on it for the recovery. A 6-yard C.J. Donaldson rushing touchdown made it 38-21. Now, Gus Malzahn decided UCF was going to go for it on a 4th and 3 from their own 32-yard line in the fourth quarter. Didn't get it. WVU rebutted with a 41-yard field goal by Michael Hayes. But then UCF responded with a garbage time touchdown to Kobe Hudson, 41-28, as West Virginia was able to run out the clock in victory formation. So once again, as I said at the onset, the largest margin of victory for West Virginia in a Big 12 conference game in 3 seasons. So that was nice that, wow, West Virginia ends it without having to play. I know, and Neil Brown played his starters deep into the fourth quarter when the game seemed to be at hand. So I think West Virginia just hadn't really been in that position very often, so Brown didn't necessarily know how to handle it, or maybe he did and just wanted to play it all the way through 60 minutes. I would have liked to see maybe a few more second stringers get into the game late there in the fourth quarter, but anyway, West Virginia comes away with a 41-28 victory. So let me give you some analysis, and I'm kind of going to be scattered all over the board, so please bear with me here. I'm going to try and start out chronologically, but then it's going to get a little bit jumbled. So I love the way that this offense started, and I hope that, and I feel like most West Virginia fans out there, if you're listening to this video, is you loved it too. This is what we'd been calling for several weeks now, especially through this 2-game losing streak. That West Virginia just needed to make a statement, and that they did. Right on the very first play, throwing that deep bomb to E.J. Horton, and then WVU playing at a pace with the kind of intensity that this was going to be like a 2018 West Virginia-Oklahoma type of track meet, a very traditional Big 12 shootout. In which both teams are going to have to score early, going to have to score often, and it might come down to the last team to have the ball. So thank you, Neil Brown. Thank you for deciding that, this is it. We're going to put pedal to the metal. We're not going to be a boxing match, or we're just going to throw a few jabs here and there. Boom, go for the haymaker on the first play and set the tone. I love that. I love that. I love that. My only question is, where was that against Houston? That's just what makes me want to pull the hair that I don't have very much of out of my head is, why couldn't you have done that against Houston? Why did it have to be so, this far into the season to finally realize that West Virginia could do this, that West Virginia could play on the road with intensity and go pedal to the metal for 4 quarters? But I digress. I just love that, the way that started out. I thought the first Beanie Bishop interception was the fortuitous bounce that WVU's needed since the TCU game, breaking up the monotony back and forth of score between both teams. Really, at that point in time, and through much of even the first half into the second half, John Rice Plumlee was picking apart this WVU defense, which was so focused on the UCF rushing attack between R.J. Harvey and Johnny Richardson. So that interception was just like, oh, what you needed. Just that was so huge. And then to respond and score off it, just points off turnovers, a theme of the day. Even though I said in the recap, I think Bishop's second interception was the one with higher degree of difficulty and just better play. But wow, what can you say? Hardy seemed to kind of it seemed like he and Bishop were fighting down the sidelines, and then at the last second he had a better break on the ball as it was coming into him, kind of undercut Bishop, fell down, and then kicking the ball up in the air. I don't know if he was trying to make a play back to himself, try and kick it up, but that was the worst thing to do in that situation. Instead, Mountaineer ball. I felt as if this game wore on. Not going really necessarily chronologically here, but you could definitely feel this in the first half as UCF was rolling offensively, that the defensive injuries were really starting to be felt, namely to Trey Lathan, now with Hershey McLaurin, and then some guys WVU just hasn't had all season, so you don't know what kind of impact that, say, a Montre Miller could have made on this team or a Josiah Trotter could have made on this team. But it forced WVU to have to go to the well in guys like Caden Beiser, who played big time at linebacker, Raleigh Collins at safety, who I talked about in this preview video when on Thursday when we heard the news that McLaurin wasn't going to play in this contest, that you're going to see Raleigh Collins out there, and he did. And I think it just forced Neil Brown's hand to have, and the offense at large, that it was going to have to be a game in which the offense won, that the defense wasn't going to be able to save you. And I think that's going to be the case for West Virginia here on out throughout the rest of the season, is just that this defense is now, you're getting into the second layer of the analogy of the onion of this defense, because now that the injuries have started to pile out, that younger guys are going to have to be called upon to make some plays. So I think it just forced Neil Brown and team to play a little bit out of their comfort zone, which is exactly what this team needed, to go out there and be aggressive and let the offense dictate terms for the entire game. So the other thing that I'll say, though, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I talked about it in the preview video, and then to see it unfold onto the field was just phenomenal, just being aggressive, but also running laterally. How about getting Rodney Gallagher involved on some of those jet sweeps? I mean, the stats are kind of paltry, but if you think about it, every time that Gallagher touched the ball, he was making a meaningful play. He was doing something to set this team up on first or second down, to put them in positive situations for third down. 3 carries for 15 yards on the day to go along with 2 catches for 20 yards. So getting Gallagher involved was great. And then what can you say about Jaheim White? What a star, what a find that West Virginia has found in this 3-star running back from York, Pennsylvania, playing much bigger, much stronger, much faster than just the 3-star rating that he had from rivals this past recruiting cycle. 9 carries, 85 yards and a touchdown. He probably would have had a second one had it not been called back for the 2 holds on the same play. I think it was in the fourth quarter. And those lateral runs by White and also getting Gallagher involved opened things up later in the game for C.J. Donaldson, who had a season-high 121 yards on 17 carries and a touchdowns. I think he would have had a second touchdown, the one in the third quarter, when the refs didn't give him the benefit of the doubt on that long run. I mean, I was watching him getting, pushing his way into the end zone. I'm like, these guys are going to call it, right? They're going to call it, right? And then they called him down, inside the half-yard line. No, that was a terrible spot. I think he got the rushing touchdown instead. It was Green on the rollout keeper who ended up getting it. The other thing I will say, another point, is I absolutely loved And if you felt the same way, please comment on this video. I loved the under the center I-form plays. We saw this on the 4th and 1 on the very first series, and that's when Donaldson busted down the left side for 21 yards. We saw it a few times in this contest, all for positive yardage. Now, I didn't pause in the research of this recap video, go back and watch exactly who all the personnel was on the field at the time, but you got to think, Green under center, you didn't have a fullback in there, you just had a Donaldson in the back and like dotting the I. So were there 4 tight ends? I mean, did you have Davis, Taylor, Wickstrom? Who all were on the field at that point in time? Like, did you pull in some other linemen? Like, I just love that. I love that. I hope that's not the last that we see of that off that formation for the rest of the season. I want to see more of that. I want to see. I don't care if it has to be on 4th down, 3rd down. Like, let's see more of that under center. Like, feeling like it's West Virginia with Pat White at quarterback these days. Go back and watch how often the I form was used. I know we talk about the spread read option attack with Pat White and Steve Slayton and Noel Devine and Owen Schmidt from those days, but I'm telling you, there was more under center than you probably remember. And to see it, that was just awesome. Blocked extremely well, and you got it. So that was awesome. I will say about Garrett Green's performance in this day, I don't think it was the best game ever by him, but I think it was the most toughness that he's ever shown in a game. I mean, especially after he re-aggravated his ankle on that quarterback keeper I saw where he kind of got tackled low around the shin and then just rolled down on his ankle and it just turned awkwardly again. I mean, to get out of one play and be right back out there. He also took a shot in the ribs late in the game on a pass play in which he really tried to make something out of nothing, and I'm just screaming at the TV like, throw the ball out of bounds, throw the ball out of bounds. I mean, he was tough. You cannot question his toughness. He just gives it all out there, and you can just tell that he is the catalyst. He is the spark that makes this engine go. He is, I mean, as much as I love Nico Marchiol and say that he's the future, he's very clearly taken a hold of this offense. Team players trust him. He's, now starting to do things according to Neil Brown post game that he hasn't done necessarily at the quarterback position. That I guess had he not suffered the injury in the Pitt game, that maybe he would have a little bit earlier in the season in his development. So. You look at the numbers, 11 rushes for just 55 yards on the day, did have a 21-yard long, but to go along with 156 pass yards on 14 completions on 23 attempts, but those 3 rushing touchdowns, all important. I think he had some misses, thankfully, that never really turned into momentum shifts for UCF. I can think of one clearly that he missed Cole Taylor on a crossing pattern on a 2nd and 2, for at least 15 yards that he would have had, that the 2 defenders were way behind Taylor that he missed. Devin Carter did have 2 drops on the day, but they weren't perfectly placed balls, that they were high degree of difficulty. And he never connected on the 2 deep bombs that he threw. So still have yet to see that type of like Will Greer way downfield to a David Sills or a Gary Jennings type of play so far yet on the season from Green. But I think it's coming. I think it's just as E.J. Horton and, especially Traylon Ray, too, who I think got hurt in this contest. I think as they get more comfortable in this offense and running their routes and have the burning speed, that Green's going to find them. I think they're going to get closer on a better page, develop that rapport, and Brown's going to trust Green to throw that deep ball, maybe at home, maybe as early as next week. So I want to see it. So I wouldn't call this an A grade performance from a quarterback, but he's just got such command of this offense, and his legs. His legs are just so important for a Neil Brown offense, I feel like, and that's exactly what this offense has been missing and has been stuck in neutral at times with Austin Kendall, with Jarrett Deggy, and then a lot of times with JT Daniels, who was just not the kind of runner that Garrett Green was. You have to, in Neil Brown's offense, I feel like, have a runner, and it's his speed that just puts defenders defenders on islands, and he's fast enough to either get around them, or he's not afraid to just take off through the pocket into the second level. So it's just, and this is going to be a constant theme game by game, and it was preseason. I feel like it has been for Garrett Green's whole career. You can't get him hurt. He's not built like Cam Newton, so he can't get hurt out there. He's got to protect himself every chance he can. Now, I thought a couple other points about the offensive line. Nick Malone, Jaquay Hubbard filled in nicely for the injured Doug Nestor and Brandon Yates at right tackle and right guard. You just have to hope and pray that Nestor's back this week for BYU. Nothing against Nick Malone. Like I said, I think he filled in admirably. Did allow that sack on Green at one point in time in the game before the Lee Koba fumble. But it's just these tackle positions are very important, I feel like, for this offense. And Nestor's just been so important for this WVU offense, really, for what, 4 seasons? So, if Nestor can't go next week and it's got to be Nick Malone, fine, so be it. It's just these tackles. It just means so much when you can shield, say, a Tomas Remak, who's just in, his 3rd year. Jaquay Hubbard's in his 4th year. Yeah, Yates in his 4th year too. But when you can you have your anchor at Zach Frazier at center, you have these tackles on the outside, so it's just makes such a single, solitary, impenetrable unit for this offensive line that aided this WVU defense for rushing over 200 yards. So I really hope that Nestor's back this week for BYU just because of how important he is for this offense. But it just goes to show how important these second-string guys are for this team at this point in the season. I mean, thank God for Tomas Remak being back and for having the total awareness to jump on that Preston Fox fumble. That was a high football IQ play, and that's the thing with teams like middle-tier teams like a West Virginia who don't necessarily have 5-star athletes all across the field. So then when you talk about the quality depth behind them, some positions are better than others. So, I mean, when you have your starters out there making awesome plays, so wonderful, that's exactly what you want to see. That's what you need to win ball games. But when you have guys who are coming out there who aren't preseason starters and going out there at this point in the year and they're making flash plays here and there, that's huge. That's what's going to help this team win games down the stretch. So how important really was it for that Lee Koba strip sack? That was awesome. How important is he for this WVU defense? I think it was impressive by color commentator Devin Gardner, former Michigan quarterback. Really did his research, did his homework, and talked about this ad nauseum. It felt like that Koba is so important that there's nobody on this WVU team who can replace him. He is just like the Tony Fields of a couple of years ago, that it's so hard to pull him off the field because of what he means. He's the anchor. He's the core. He's exactly what, if next season, if you put a Trey Lathan next to Ben Cutter or you get Josiah Trotter in there, that middle linebacker position, it just shows in this Jordan Leslie defense is so important. 8 tackles on the day. Cutter next to him had 5 solo tackles. A tackle for loss he made on a nice run play read where he jumped through the gap to make the tackle and had a pass breakup on the day. I'm still going to need a little bit of convincing, and I don't know how you all feel, so please leave your comments on this video. I want to know how you feel about this. My take on this is I'm still going to need some convincing as to why not trot out a 4th down lineman in this defensive scheme. It just seems like, and the turnovers, pretty clearly, the turnovers forced made the difference in this ball game. And it definitely seemed like UCF was the kind of offense that could, and in this case can, put up a lot of yards, but would eventually mess up somehow and turn the ball over. So it really played right into the hand of what Jordan Leslie likes to do as a defensive coordinator with his zone defense, to play to bend but not break, turn the turnovers, 3rd down stops to get opponents off the field. We'll give up yards between the 40s and that was the fifth best rushing offense in the country, so they were going to churn yardage up. And they had two talented wide receivers on opposite sides of the field, and even, their third and fourth wide receivers made some plays in this ball game. But it just seems like watching this game for 4 quarters that, WVU's defensive line has a 3 versus 5 disadvantage every single time the ball is snapped. And I just have to admit that it frustrates guys like Mike Lockhart, Sean Martin especially. He's not necessarily getting the statistics that you would usually see out of like some guys like on Pitt's defensive line. Mike Lockhart, Eddie Vesterinen, and then some of the other guys who rotate in as your like 1A, 1B guys. Now I know it just seems like they funnel the opponent's offensive line, so that then the ball carriers, are funneled right to the linebackers, and they're the guys who go out there and have to make plays and have to rack up the tackles. So they're going to have high tackle numbers. They're hugely important. I just think that the way that this defense is so worn down at the linebacker position, so thin with Koba and Cutter and now Caden Beiser coming in and playing meaningful snaps, that why not try a fourth down lineman? I mean, I'm not critical of Jared Bartlett in this performance. I know he got hurt at one point in time, but I just don't see the point in this bandit position. I just haven't been able to figure it out and I know it seemed like Vandarius Cowan was WVU's prototype bandit player, a guy who's, somewhere in the ballpark of 6'4" or bigger, 240 or bigger, and he can play up like a fourth or a third linebacker or play down like a fourth lineman. But just there's not that perfect kind of player. We didn't see James Hurd once again. I haven't seen him all season, so I think he's more in for a redshirt year to develop. So it's just like you got Tamia Durage, you have Day Hawkins, you have Zyke Lawton, you have all these guys that you're rotating in, and you say you're 10 deep on the defensive line. So why don't you see 4? Why don't you keep Ben Cutter, Lee Koba healthy, rotate in Tyron Bradley and or Jarrett Bartlett at the weak side linebacker position, so then you can spell Koba with Cutter? You know what I'm saying is you can play with those rotations at the 2 linebacker positions and really go to a traditional what you would call 4-2-5 and give your defensive line a little bit more of an advantage to go out there and make plays. I don't know. I'm not the defensive coordinator. I don't see these guys every single day in practice, but it's just I don't know how you say this. You want to play to your team's strengths, and right now, while you have quality players at linebacker, you just have fewer and fewer in number. It seems like as the days and the weeks go on. So why not try a 4th down lineman? I don't know. So we'll see. I'll keep that. I'll keep that something that I recur in my videos and talk about down the stretch is I just don't think that this defensive line is getting enough, and it's because they're 2 men disadvantaged. So I don't know. I thought Michael Hayes was phenomenal on his kickoffs. 6 out of his 8 were touchbacks, with the 1 return being when the game was with hand in the 4th quarter. So you didn't have to worry about this UCF kickoff return game. Xavier Townsend being a guy who was just as good as Preston Fox, or even better. So didn't even have to worry about that component in the game. Hayes was booting the ball into the end zone, so that was awesome. He also added 2 more field goals to his total for the year, including 1 over 40 yards. So I'm super impressed by Michael Hayes. Love what he gives to this special teams unit. And what more can you say about Ollie Straw? Only had to punt 2 times in this contest, and what do you know? Both times kicked it inside UCF's 20, that's a stat of worth. That's something I talk about all in my preview videos when looking in the punting matchup. How many times has your punter pinned the opponent inside the 20-yard line? So awesome job by both Ollie Straw and Michael Hayes on this day. No Andrew Wilson-Lamp, no Lance Dixon again for the 2nd game in a row. You took the two weakest links for WVU off the field, and thankfully they weren't there to make two uncharacteristic like gaffes like they had in the game against Oklahoma State last week and Houston on kick return coverage, respectively. So clean game by the Mountaineers, no turnover. I guess they did have, didn't. They had the fumble. Oh yeah. They had the fumble. They had the one, but again, you got it right back with a turnover on the very next play, and then you did have two more fumbles in the day, but both were recovered. So really, only one turnover. You won the turnover battle. You won the points off turnovers battle. No consequential penalties. Even I know it was even in the third quarter that West Virginia still hadn't had a penalty on the day, and I'm telling you that offsides on Sean Martin, I heard whistles in the crowd. So maybe he had something mixed up, thinking that one of the refs blew their whistle, and that's why he jumped off sides or whatnot. But again, still penalties. It was a pretty penalty-free day. Incredibly clean played football by West Virginia in this game. Only one sack allowed. They were 7 of 8 in the red zone offensively, so that was just nice. That's what you need to do. That's how you have to play. And this UCF team is no slouch. Really, you look at it, they're going to struggle next year. If Hardy decides to come back, and I don't know if he either goes to the NFL or wants to try and upgrade by going somewhere else as a grad transfer, because he definitely has the talent and the ball skills for it, because Plumlee's not going to be there. You're losing Richardson at running back. You're losing Harvey at running back. If the one Baker, not Hardy. Why did I think Javon Hardy? If his younger brother Jared decides to follow with him or go in suit, this is a team. This is an upper class laden UCF team, especially on offense. Defense, I know they're a little young and still developing, but it's just they're now 0-5 in Big 12 play. They're realizing that whoa, you got to have some talent. So I think there's still going to be more of a rebuild for this UCF program, even looking into 2024, looking ahead. But still, that was a game and this goes for all of the Neil Brown is the end-all, be-all decider on all things crowd of the WVU fan base, where he gets absolutely all the blame and all of the losses and no credit in any of the wins. I think this was the best complete game that he strategized, and then the team's gone out there and executed, I think, since Texas in 2021, when Deggy really played the game of his life. So I hope the aggressiveness on offense continues. Just the way that we saw that West Virginia came out in the first quarter and just went in attack mode, as Brown called it. So continue in attack mode against BYU. Do not let off. You're definitely going to have to play in attack mode against Oklahoma, and then we'll see what happens come Cincinnati and then Baylor time. So WVU rushed for 286 yards on 50 carries. That came to a 5.7 yards per carry average. Sensational. You're going to win a lot of games doing that. If you get Nestor and Yates back healthy, most especially, I think another key is you've got to keep the guys that they do have healthy and find the right guys to plug and play that are, the young guys here on out. So I've already kind of talked to this point, but we saw Raleigh Collins get in there. Caden Beiser came away with 6 tackles, 4 solo, 2 assisted in this day. Jacoby Spells had a pass breakup. You hadn't heard his name called all that often this season, just given how great Bishop and Malachi Ruffin have been. Jaheim White, what more can you say about that guy? He definitely he's going to command more carries down the stretch with Donaldson as the one. I think White's pushing. He's definitely pushing. I think he's pushed through Jalen Anderson as the third string running back at least, and now he's pushing on Justin Johnson for taking those second string carries away. He's got to continue, I guess, to keep it up at practice, is what Neil Brown's criticism was for why he didn't play very much against Oklahoma State. And then getting Rodney Gallagher involved, great. So there's 5 guys I named for you right there who, in their first or second season, I don't know about Beiser, but again, former walk-on, who's coming in there and now playing meaningful snaps. So who's going to be that next man up at this point in the season as we turn the page into November. And then I think just push the right buttons. This is for Neil Brown. Pushing the right buttons in practice this week to keep WVU motivated. Got the guys back out on the field last Sunday, kind of switched up their practice routine, and boom, what do you know? It was to the success for the team in this game against UCF. Can't have really a lapse in intensity like it had against Houston with that quasi-bye week, which they had 10 days to prepare for that game, and then 9 days really to prepare for Oklahoma State, in which we saw 2 losses. So I don't know if it's necessarily routine's the best thing for this team, but playing its first noon game of the season, came out there, and it wasn't like they were sleepwalking like they were playing at Northwestern or something like that they came out there from the jump and played hard. So now this week, against BYU, an opponent West Virginia hasn't played since, 2016, first year in the Big 12 Conference. They know Keaton Slovis is on the other side of the ball, who was the quarterback for Pitt last year in the Backyard Brawl. So that'll be some nice motivation to keep them engaged, keep them interested. And then OU in 2 weeks, you don't need any bulletin board material for Oklahoma. So, keep this team engaged, Neil Brown. I think, there's some positive momentum. There's some good vibes, good juju. So just keep it going. And a lot of credit for the way that he coached these guys up, both offensively and defensively, special teams, I would say, to win this ball game, and did so against a UCF team. So let me look at the 3 keys to victory. I think I need to bring these back up because we hit on a lot of them. The offensive aggressiveness, check. And also getting your best players to perform like stars. C.J. Donaldson, check. Garrett Green, Lee Koba, Beanie Bishop, awesome. Check on that box for one of the 3 keys to victory. I think limiting the UCF big plays, we talked about it at the home run hitters, at the wide receivers and running backs positions, check. You kept them in check. The only times that they were scoring points, it was just on long, sustained drives that then they continued into the end zone and didn't turn the ball over. So it wasn't any big play out there that UCF bombed for 70 yards plus like they did against Kent State week 1 when you just saw them unload for 56 points on the Golden Flashes. So check that other box. And I would say playing nasty within the legal limits of the games. I mean, Bishop's picks, tough, hard-nosed, no prisoners attitude. Koba's fumble, that was one of the ones that made you go, woo, whenever when Plumlee got hit and fumbled the ball. The rushing attack, obviously, the offensive line was pounding him. The running backs were pounding UCF. The points off turnovers was like a killer instinct. I just think check. And to say, and this is not to degrade UCF and its fan base, but just seeing that crowd at FBC Mortgage Stadium, the bounce house, I wasn't thoroughly impressed. I know I wasn't there in person, just watching it on TV, but it seemed kind of to me like Maryland that I was in person for a couple of years ago. There was a big student section that was filled up, probably because it was homecoming. It was even homecoming. And I just think the students showed out. The students are crazy. They were going crazy. You have 58,000 undergraduates, so your whole stadium pretty much could be students. That's what it seemed to be. It was West Virginia fans and it was UCF students, and not a whole lot extra on top of it. So it wasn't like you were playing at Beaver Stadium. It wasn't like you're playing at the Palace on the Prairie in a couple of weeks in Oklahoma. That West Virginia handled the bounce house fine, and then they took it to them, and it seemed like they were the aggressors. So what I'll say to West Virginia fans, and this kind of goes to my point about beating UCF, is appreciate this one. I love this game. This was an awesome game to watch. It was just one that just made you proud to be a Mountaineer fan by the end of it. That's what we got to do as Mountaineer fans. We got to start appreciating these wins more, because they can just as easily, just few things right or wrong, like we saw these last couple weeks against Oklahoma State with that kamikaze by Andrew Wilson Lamp and then that Hail Mary play against Houston, is it's the difference, it seems like, in games are this close in the Big 12. It's because of such similar styles and so many coaches knowing so many of the different other ones. They know how to take advantage of this, that, and the other thing, and high-powered offenses. So who cares really if this was a UCF team that you should beat and was already 0-4 in Big 12 play to start out the year? So just continuing to tread them in the wrong direction in this conference. You were a 7-point underdog. This was, again, one that the ESPN FPI said that you weren't going to win. It had been said since the beginning of the season, and even when this team started getting rolling with those wins through Pitt, Texas Tech, and then TCU, that still didn't change all that much. That was going to be a favorable outcome. That you were saying West Virginia was going to lose. So a conference road game, which, you'd ask any coach out there how important those kinds of wins are. You broke a 2-game losing streak. Really, I mean, the way that it was talked through Mountaineer Nation this past week, especially on social media, was just so ugly after that loss to Oklahoma State. And really, I mean, Neil Brown's head by so many West Virginia fans, including myself at times, has been served on a silver platter multiple times. So to go out there to put up that kind of a performance by both the players and the coaching staffs, bravo. That was awesome. We are behind you, and you're still not completely out of it for a spot in the Big 12 title game. There's two teams that play in this contest. I don't see Texas losing here on out. I know Quinn Ewers is hurt, but you still have a lot of game in front of you, and a lot of things that are happening with teams around you. So it's like Bedlam's this upcoming Saturday between Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. I think Iowa State has a big one as well. So these teams, because West Virginia just got the schedule of the century without having to play Kansas, without having to play Kansas State, without having to play Iowa State, and probably on the road where West Virginia really struggles with the Cyclones, and not having to play Texas, you missed all 4 of those opponents. So, wow, there's opportunity. I know you lost to Houston. So, that's going to be the loss against this schedule for the season. You're just going to go back. And I've already been saying it. I already said it yesterday. I've already said it today. I'm going to probably say it tomorrow. If you just could have beat Houston. So, anyway. Appreciate this win. Just settle on it for one more day with talking with your coworkers, family, and friends. If you see them tomorrow, those coworkers at work tomorrow, enjoy it for another 24 hours or less, and then boom, we're on to BYU and hopefully a night game at Milan Puskar Stadium in November. 2 teams who are 5-3 on the season and looking to stay in contention for a Big 12 title. Should be a great showing by the fans. Should be a fun one. I'm gonna be there in person in the green lot, so for the day, and then in the stadium. But that's where you can catch me. So I hope you like this video. I'd love to hear your feelings on it. So leave your comments here on YouTube or catch me on Twitter at Carson_Fox27. And if you like this video and you like some of the other content on my video playlist, hit that subscribe button, like this video so more Mountaineer fans. Tell a friend, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this before each and every game, before and after. And I got some other thoughts I've been kicking around after this game that I might come with a special edition of a Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer sports type video midweek this week. But otherwise, I'll be back Thursday and we'll break it down. Cougars, Mountaineers. But again, Mountaineers come up with a huge victory, beating the Golden Knights 41-28 in Orlando. So let's go Mountaineers. Hail West Virginia.